Welcome to the Deep Dive, where our mission is always to extract the most important nuggets of knowledge and insight from the sources you've shared with us.
That's right.
Today, we're embarking on a fascinating journey, really, into the world of a plant that's as unique as its name is, well, surprisingly deceptive. Euphorbia japonica. You might already know it by its charming nicknames like pineapple euphorbia or maybe cocklebur, because of its truly distinctive shape. You know, almost like a miniature pineapple.
It's very visually striking.
It really is. Our sources today are a rich stack of plant information, cultivation guides, botanical insights, basically everything you need to become truly well-informed about this intriguing succulent.
Yeah, good cross-section of info.
Our mission is clear: to unpack everything someone looking to grow Euphorbia japonica needs to know. We're talking its surprising origins, its specific care requirements, and crucially, the essential safety precautions.
Indeed. And this deep dive, it won't just illuminate the practicalities, how to actually grow Euphorbia japonica. We'll also delve into its botanical nuances, offering a deeper understanding that, goes beyond just the surface level.
Good.
What's fascinating here, I think, is how a plant's name can sometimes completely obscure its true story.
Totally.
And we'll reveal the surprising backstory of this particular hybrid, helping you truly grasp its identity, which is key.
Okay, let's unpack this plant right from the start then. It's got this super distinctive look, like we said, almost like a miniature pineapple, which is exactly where those cool common names like pineapple euphorbia or cocklebur come from. It's compact, it's charismatic.
Very much so.
And it's definitely a big hit with succulent lovers, I think, mainly for its unique aesthetic.
Absolutely, it stands out.
So let's dive into the core identity of this plant, because despite those charming nicknames, there's a fascinating twist to its scientific name, isn't there? The japonica part.
Absolutely. And this raises a really important question about plant nomenclature, how we interpret scientific names. Because while the species epithet japonica might strongly suggest a Japanese origin, it literally means from Japan, our sources clarify that Euphorbia japonica is not a native species of Japan at all.
Right. Not even close, apparently.
Not even close. In fact, it's classified as a cultivated dwarf hybrid. It's a horticultural creation, something intentionally developed by people.
Okay, so bred, not wild.
Exactly. It's not something you'd find naturally occurring in the wild, setting up colonies in a natural habitat somewhere.
Gotcha.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, understanding its true parentage is absolutely fundamental if you want to grow it successfully.
Makes sense.
It's a meticulously created cross between two distinct Euphorbia species, Euphorbia Susanna and Euphorbia Bupleurifolia.
Okay.
And what's crucial here is that both of these parent species are indigenous to South Africa.
South Africa. Okay, that's the key bit.
That's the key. This African heritage, rather than any supposed Japanese connection, is the genuine key to understanding its genetic blueprint and, consequently, its environmental needs.
So the single most important nugget of knowledge about its name, then, is that while it says japonica, its true home, or at least its ancestral home, is actually South Africa.
Precisely.
What does that mean for you, the aspiring Euphorbia japonica grower? How does knowing its South African roots immediately guide us in its care? Like, what should pop into our heads?
Well, it's a game changer for its well-being, really. Knowing its South African lineage immediately tells you a lot about its preferred climate.
Okay.
Specifically, that it thrives in warm, arid to semi-arid conditions. It prefers plenty of sunlight, heat, and excellent drainage. Think dry.
Right, dry and warm. Not damp and temperate like maybe you'd guess for Japan.
Exactly. This initial aha moment about its origin is key to getting its care right from day one. It allows you to anticipate its needs based on its genuine genetic predispositions rather than, being led astray by a misleading name.
Yeah, you'd be giving it completely the wrong conditions otherwise.
Potentially, yes. It shifts your mindset from Japanese plant to South African succulent. And honestly, that's the difference between it thriving and just sort of surviving. Or maybe not even surviving.
Okay, huge takeaway right there. Know the real roots.
Yeah.
Now that we've cleared up its identity, or at least its misleading name, let's get a little bit botanical and explore its family ties. Our plant, Euphorbia japonica, belongs to a truly massive and incredibly diverse plant family. It's almost mind-boggling how varied they can be.
Oh, indeed. It's classified under the Euphorbia, which is commonly known as the spurge family.
Spurge family, right.
And this is genuinely one of the largest genera in the entire plant kingdom. It boasts an astonishing diversity. We're talking over 2,000 species.
Wow, 2,000.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here is the sheer range of forms within this single family.
Yeah.
You can find pretty much anything from leafy shrubs to annual herbs, robust woody plants, and even, succulents that strikingly resemble cacti.
That's wild. How can they all be related looking so different?
It showcases an incredible evolutionary adaptability across different ecosystems globally. They've really conquered a lot of niches.
Okay, so given that incredible diversity, what's the unifying characteristic? What truly ties them all together? The thing that makes a euphorbia of Euphorbia? There must be some shared family secret, right?
There is, and it's quite distinctive. Almost all Euphorbia species share a defining characteristic that acts as a real telltale sign. They secrete a milky white sap, or latex, when any part of the plant is damaged. Cut it, break it, it bleeds white.
Ah, the latex. Okay.
Yeah. And this isn't just some quirky feature. It's a very sophisticated evolutionary adaptation for defense against herbivores, against things trying to eat it.
Makes sense, like a chemical weapon.
Exactly. This latex contains complex compounds that can be toxic or severely irritating to skin and mucous membranes upon contact. It's their natural protective barrier.
Okay, good to know.
And understanding this detail is absolutely crucial for safety, which, we'll dive into in depth a bit later, but it's a universal trait across pretty much the entire genus.
Right. So beyond that protective, sometimes nasty sap, is there anything else that specifically sets the Euphorbia genus apart biologically, something truly unique to this family?
Absolutely. There's another truly unique and defining feature of the Euphorbia genus, and that's their highly specialized flower structure. It's called a cyathium.
A cyathium. Okay, new word for me.
Yeah, it's Cyathium. So instead of typical flowers with petals and sepals like you might picture,
Right.
imagine tiny, highly reduced male and female flowers, like super simplified. And they're encased within a distinct cup-shaped structure.
Cup.
Yeah, a little cup. And this cup is actually formed by fused bracts, which are basically modified leaves. These individual flowers inside the cyathium lack typical petals or sepals, making them quite unassuming, actually.
So they don't look like showy flowers.
Not usually, no. Often you'll find nectar glands on the rim of the cyathium, strategically placed to draw in pollinators, like flies or small insects.
Ah, okay. So function over form, maybe?
Pretty much. This distinctive floral arrangement is really unparalleled elsewhere in the plant kingdom. It's a true botanical marvel that highlights their unique evolutionary path and, their efficiency in reproduction.
That's actually really cool. A very specialized system.
Yeah.
So how does our specific plant, Euphorbia japonica, fit into this family picture, especially given its hybrid nature? And what does it actually look like? Can you paint an even clearer picture of its defining features? What makes it look like that pineapple?
Certainly. So Euphorbia japonica, as we've established, is a hybrid specifically within this diverse Euphorbia genus. Its parents, Euphorbia Susanna and Euphorbia Bupleurifolia, both hail from South Africa.
Right, the South African connection again.
Exactly. And this lineage directly explains its pronounced succulent characteristics, its ability to store water, and its natural preference for warmer, drier environmental conditions. It simply inherited these traits from its South African ancestors.
Makes perfect sense.
In terms of appearance, its growth habit is undeniably compact and dwarf. It typically forms a dense, low clump that sits close to the ground.
Like a little cushion?
Yeah, kind of. It's very often likened to a sphere, or, as its nickname suggests, a small, miniature pineapple. That's because it has multiple branches extending outwards from a central point.
Okay, I can picture that.
And each of these branches culminates in a distinctive tuft of long, green, deciduous leaves.
Deciduous, so they drop off.
Yes, they can drop off, particularly during dormancy or stress, which further emphasizes its unique, sort of knobbly appearance when the leaves are gone. It's often grown by collectors specifically for that sculptural quality.
Interesting. And how big does it get? Is it something that takes over?
No, not at all. In terms of size, Euphorbia japonica is a decidedly slow grower. Its spherical clumps usually reach a pretty modest length of about 2 to 5 centimeters, maybe an inch or two, and about 4 centimeters or an inch and a half in diameter.
Tiny.
Initially, yes. A mature plant over quite some time can spread approximately 30 to 40 centimeters wide, so maybe just over a foot, and grow up to about 30 centimeters tall.
Okay, so it stays relatively small and manageable then. Good for indoors.
Exactly. Perfect for windowsills or small collections where space is limited.
You mentioned structure. Does it have a specific underground part?
Yes. Delving into its structure, it has a thickened root system that cleverly transitions into a short, partially underground caudex. or tuber.
A caudex, like a swollen base.
Precisely. It's a swollen stem base that acts as a water and nutrient storage organ, a very common adaptation for plants from arid environments. It helps them survive drought.
Smart.
And it's from this caudex that those characteristic pineapple-like branches emerge, giving the plant its peculiar and frankly beloved clustered appearance.
So the branches come from that swollen bit.
That's right. And as a hybrid, it exhibits this interesting and unique blend of characteristics. It inherited traits from both parents, E. Susanna's compact clumping nature and E. Bupleurifolia's slightly different distinctive stem and leaf structure. It's a real mix.
A true blend. And when it blooms, you mentioned the cyathea. What can a grower expect? Are the flowers as striking as its overall form, or are they more subtle?
They're definitely more subtle. The flowers themselves, which are part of that specialized cyatheum structure we discussed,
Yeah.
they're quite inconspicuous, really. They're typically a subtle yellow-green color, sort of blending in more with the plant itself rather than standing out dramatically.
Okay, so not a big flower show?
No, it offers more of a quiet, understated charm rather than a flamboyant display. It generally flowers from spring to summer, so it's like a small added bonus to its already unique form rather than the main event.
Okay, we've hinted at it, maybe danced around it a bit, but let's dedicate a whole segment now to the fascinating and, let's be honest, often misunderstood origin story of Euphorbia japonica.
Yes, it's worth clarifying fully.
Because this is such a crucial piece of the puzzle, and understanding it can fundamentally change how you approach its care, like we touched on earlier.
Absolutely. It's critical to understand right from the outset that Euphorbia japonica is not a wild-growing species. Not anywhere in the world.
Okay, definite point number one.
Right. It's a plant of horticultural origin. That means it was intentionally created through human cultivation and selective breeding.
Made by people, for people's gardens, essentially.
Essentially, yes. You won't find it naturally occurring in the wild, establishing colonies in some pristine natural habitat. It's a common and beloved plant in gardens and collections precisely because it was bred for those purposes, valued for its unique look and manageable size.
Right, it was designed to be appealing.
Exactly. Now, its parent species, Euphorbia Susanna and Euphorbia Bupleurifolia, they are wild species, and both are unequivocally indigenous to South Africa.
There it is again, South Africa.
And this geographical origin of its ancestors, it's not just some botanical footnote. It's a key factor influencing Euphorbia japonica's inherent succulent traits and its general preference for those warm, well-drained environments. Its genetic predispositions are rooted firmly in the South African landscape, not Japan.
So if its scientific name, Japonica, literally means from Japan, but its parents are clearly South African, how did this confusion even arise? And why is it so important for growers, for you listening, to understand this contradiction?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Precisely. The species epithet japonica is fundamentally misleading regarding its true geographical origin.
It's just wrong, basically.
It's just wrong in this context, yes.
Yeah.
While some older, or perhaps less reliable sources might erroneously suggest its origin as Japan.
Which you might still find online, I guess.
You might. But more reliable botanical and horticultural sources clearly and consistently indicate its hybrid origin with South African parents. The common name Japanese spurge likely contributes significantly to this widespread and persistent confusion as well.
Ah, the common name reinforces the mistake.
Exactly. It makes people assume a false connection to Japan. So for you, the grower, it's vital to understand that the japonica epithet doesn't signify its native habitat because, well, as a hybrid, it doesn't have a native habitat in the traditional sense.
Right.
Instead, its name probably stems from some historical reason, or maybe horticultural naming conventions that, in this specific case, just turned out to be quite confusing. Perhaps the person who first described or popularized it had some connection to Japan, or it became popular there first. We don't always know the exact reason for these historical naming choices.
So it's a good lesson then.
It really offers a valuable lesson for all plant enthusiasts.
Yeah.
Plant scientific names, without proper context and thorough research into their meaning, can sometimes be deceptive. Always dig a little deeper. Don't just take the name at face value.
Good advice. This contradiction between the name and its true lineage really highlights the importance of accurate information, especially when it comes to actually growing the plant.
Yeah.
How does clarifying this help us care for it more effectively? What practical insights does it give us?
Well, by stating unequivocally that Euphorbia japonica is a horticultural hybrid with South African parentage, we provide crucial, actionable information for accurate cultivation practices. Like we said, a hybrid, being a cultivated creation, doesn't possess a native habitat like wild species do. Instead, its genetic lineage points directly to the native range of its parent species, South Africa.
So you treat it like its parent's home.
You mimic that environment, yes. This precise explanation directly resolves any confusion stemming from its name and offers a deeper, more accurate understanding of its botanical status. And that is indispensable for providing it with the right environmental conditions and care.
Right.
It guides you to mimic the ancestral climate. It's genetically predisposed to thrive in warm, sunny, dry frost, which leads to a much healthier, happier plant. For example, knowing its South African roots tells you immediately it needs protection from frost, needs plenty of sun, and it absolutely requires excellent drainage. Things you might not guess if you just assumed it came from Japan.
Yeah, you might think cooler, maybe more humidity. Completely wrong.
Completely wrong. So knowing the origin story isn't just trivia, it's fundamental care information.
All right, now that we've thoroughly sorted out its identity crisis and its true roots in South Africa, let's get down to the nitty-gritty. How do you make this little pineapple look-alike not just survive, but actually thrive in your care? What are the absolute must-knows when it comes to its light requirements? Where should people put it?
Okay, light. Euphorbia japonica generally flourishes in bright, indirect light or partial shade.
Bright indirect. Okay.
This setup is pretty ideal because it effectively mimics the filtered light conditions its parent species would naturally experience in their native South African environment. Maybe growing under the dappled shade of other larger plants or nestled in rocky outcrops.
So not necessarily blasting full sun all day.
Not necessarily, no.
Yeah.
While some direct sunlight, particularly the softer morning sun, can indeed enhance the plant's leaf coloration, make it look a bit more stressed and interesting, maybe.
Yeah.
And it can encourage more prolific flowering. It's absolutely crucial to shield the plant from intense, scorching midday sun, especially if you're in a hotter climate.
Midday sun is the enemy.
It really can be. Unfiltered, harsh sunlight can very easily scorch and severely damage the plant's succulent tissues. You'll see actual burn marks, brown patches, and that can even lead to death in severe cases.
Yikes.
Now, during its winter dormancy, particularly if it's potted and you bring it indoors.
Which most people will have to do.
Which most people will, yes. Moving it to your brightest sunny window can actually be very effective in maintaining its health and vigor. Winter sun is typically much less intense, so it can handle more direct exposure then.
Okay, so location matters depending on the season too.
Absolutely. The key is balanced bright light overall, but always protected from the harshest direct rays, especially in summer.
Got it. What about watering? You mentioned drainage is key, and this is often where things go wrong for succulents, right? People love them, but then they love them a little too much with the watering can. It seems to be the classic mistake.
You've hit on perhaps the most critical point for Euphorbia japonica. I really can't stress this enough. This plant is exceptionally vulnerable to root rot caused by overwatering. This is, almost without exception, the leading cause of death for these plants.
The #1 killer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Many euphorbias, not just this one, are said to succumb more often to overwatering than to outright neglect. Understanding this is paramount. So here's the golden rule for watering this plant, and maybe write this down. When in doubt, don't water.
Okay, less is more. Much more.
Much more. Underwatering is almost always recoverable. The plant might shrivel a bit, but give it water, it perks up. Overwatering, however, especially once rot sets in, it's often fatal. The roots just turn to mush.
Grim. Okay, so how do we do it right? Is there a schedule?
It's less about a strict schedule and more about responding to the plant and the soil. Let's break down a seasonal watering strategy because it changes dramatically throughout the year.
Right, active growth versus dormancy.
Exactly. During its active growing season, which generally spans from spring to fall, let's say roughly April to September in the Northern Hemisphere, you should water thoroughly. That means drenching the soil completely until water runs out the bottom. But, and this is the crucial part, only after the soil has completely dried out from the previous watering.
Completely dry. How do you check?
A good, reliable rule of thumb is to check that the top few centimeters, maybe the top inch or two, of soil are bone dry before you even think about watering again. You can use your finger, just stick it in the soil. Or a wooden skewer, if it comes out clean and dry, it's time. A moisture meter can also work.
Okay, finger test or skewer test. Got it.
Yeah. Now, while some sources might vaguely suggest keeping it consistently moist during summer, considering its overall susceptibility to root rot.
Which you just hammered home.
Right. The method of thorough watering, followed by a distinct, definite drying period, is significantly safer and far more reliable for its long-term health. Don't keep it constantly damp.
Dry out completely between waterings.
Yeah.
Loud and clear. What about winter?
Okay, winter. When the plant enters its dormancy period, roughly from October to March, you must drastically reduce watering. Dramatically. Be very, very sparing. Typically watering only once every 2 weeks to maybe even once a month. Or another way to think about it is watering solely when the plant shows clear, unmistakable signs of wilting and shriveling.
So wait for it to ask for water, almost.
Almost, yes. Overwatering during winter is particularly detrimental and can easily lead to fatal rot because the plant's metabolic processes slow down significantly. It's just not using much water.
Right, it's sleeping.
It's sleeping. However, there's a little nuance here for caudex-forming types like Euphorbia japonica, the swollen base we talked about.
Yeah.
Light winter watering, light, maybe 2 to 3 times a month, just enough to lightly moisten the soil, not drench it, can actually help prevent the fine feeder roots from completely dying off from desiccation.
So they don't dry out too much?
Exactly. And this can support better regrowth in spring, especially if your winter environment isn't extremely cold or if the air is very dry from indoor heating. It's a delicate balance, though.
Yeah.
You're aiming for just enough moisture to prevent total desiccation without inviting rot. Again, err on the side of too dry.
Tricky balance, but crucial. And how should we apply the water? Just dump it on top.
No, definitely avoid overhead watering. Always.
Why is that?
Because getting the leaves and stems wet, especially the dense cluster of branches, can encourage undesirable fungal issues like powdery mildew. Water sitting in the crevices is bad news.
Okay, aim for the soil.
Always aim for the soil level. And if you use a saucer beneath the pot to catch drainage,
Which you should.
make absolutely sure no standing water accumulates in that saucer. The roots should never, under any circumstances, sit in stagnant water. That's a direct route to root rot. Troncally empty any excess water that drains into the saucer within, say, 15-30 minutes of watering.
Okay, empty the saucer. Got it. So watering is absolutely crucial, clearly the biggest hurdle. What kind of soil should we be putting it in, given this extreme sensitivity to moisture? And what about the pot itself? Does the type of pot make a difference?
Both are critical. Euphorbia japonica absolutely necessitates a very, very well-draining soil mix to prevent that waterlogging and the subsequent root rot we keep talking about.
Drainage, drainage, drainage.
That's the mantra. A sandy or gritty soil composition is highly beneficial. It allows water to pass through quickly without holding excess moisture around the roots, effectively mimicking its natural arid environment.
So what kind of mix? Can you buy something?
You absolutely can. Using a specialized succulent or cactus potting mix is strongly recommended. They're specifically formulated for excellent drainage properties. That's usually the easiest route. Alternatively, for those who like to mix their own, the key is to ensure it's very gritty and free draining. A good homemade mix typically includes a significant portion of inorganic material. Think things like pumice, perlite, scoria, coarse sand, maybe even small gravel. We're talking maybe 60–70% of the mix.
Mostly rocks and grit.
Pretty much. And then you mix that with a smaller portion of organic material, like maybe some leaf mold, cocklebur, or just a bit of good quality general potting soil for some nutrient retention.
Yeah.
But the bulk should be drainage material.
Okay, mostly grit, less soil. What about pH? Does it care?
It generally prefers a slightly acidic to neutral range, typically somewhere between pH 5.0 and 7.0. However, it's worth noting that most Euphorbia species, including this one probably, can tolerate slightly alkaline soil conditions as well. They're somewhat flexible there, but slightly acidic to neutral is the sweet spot.
Good to know. And the pot?
The pot is hugely important too. It's imperative, absolutely vital, that your chosen pot has ample drainage holes. Not just one tiny one, but several good-sized ones, to allow excess water to flow out freely and completely.
More holes, the better.
Within reason, yes. Good drainage is key. And the material matters too. Unglazed clay or terracotta pots are highly recommended.
Why terracotta?
Because their porous nature helps evaporate excess moisture directly through the sides of the pot, helping the soil dry out quicker. It's an extra safeguard against root rot.
Ah, okay. So plastic maybe not the best choice here.
Plastic can work if you're extremely careful with watering and the soil mix is perfect, but terracotta provides an extra buffer. It's more forgiving.
Good tip. What about pot size?
When repotting, select a pot that is only one size larger than the current one, maybe an inch or two wider in diameter, max.
Why not give it lots of room?
Because avoiding excessive soil volume is important. A huge pot with lots of extra soil will hold on to moisture for much longer, increasing the risk of overwatering and root rot, especially for a slow-growing plant like this. keep it relatively snug.
Okay, slightly bigger, not huge.
Yeah.
Any tips for the repotting process itself?
Yes. It's generally advised to withhold watering for several days before repotting. Let the soil dry out a bit. This minimizes root damage during the process, as wet roots are more fragile.
Okay, repot dry.
Repot dry. And then wait a few days after repotting before you resume watering. This gives any damaged roots time to heal and callus over slightly, reducing the risk of infection when water is reintroduced.
Makes sense. Let it recover.
Exactly. And if hypothetically you live in a climate where you could plant it in a garden bed,
Like Southern California or somewhere very mild.
right, consider planting it in a raised bed or on a rockery. Anything to significantly improve drainage and lift it above the surrounding soil level.
Elevate it.
Elevate it. Shallow planting, where the top of the root ball is slightly above the soil line, can also help. And adding a top dressing of inorganic material like bark chips or gravel around the base can help prevent moisture accumulation right around the codex, which is particularly prone to rot if it stays wet.
Lots of ways to encourage dryness then.
That's the name of the game.
Okay, we've covered light, watering, soil, pots. What about temperature and humidity? Are there specific ranges it really likes or conditions it absolutely cannot tolerate?
Yes, temperature is critical too. Euphorbia japonica thrives in warm environments. Ideally, average daytime temperatures should range from about 15 to 30 degrees Celsius. That's roughly 65 to 86 Fahrenheit.
So standard room temperature up to quite warm is good.
Exactly. However, its cold hardiness is notably low. It's extremely susceptible to frost and extreme cold. This is not a frost-tolerant plant at all.
Okay, so definitely needs protection in winter for most people.
Absolutely. You should make sure to move the plant indoors well before temperatures consistently drop below 15 degrees Celsius or 59 Fahrenheit. And ideally, get it inside before they even reach 10 Celsius or 50 Fahrenheit.
Don't push your luck with the cold.
Don't push your luck. Exposure to cold can cause immediate leaf drop, which is a warning sign. And in severe or prolonged cases, cold can be fatal to the entire plant. Its succulent tissues just aren't adapted to freezing temperatures. They turn to mush, just like with root rot.
Okay, protect from cold. What about heat?
Conversely, Euphorbia japonica tolerates heat quite well. It can truly flourish in warm to hot conditions, provided it receives appropriate watering, remember, dry out between waterings, and, critically, is protected from that intense midday sun we discussed earlier.
So heat is okay, but scorching sun is not.
Precisely. And humidity. It's quite sensitive to high humidity.
Ah, okay. Prefers drier air.
Yes, especially in humid climates. It's essential to ensure good air circulation around the plant. Stagnant, moist air is a breeding ground for fungal diseases like powdery mildew or rust.
So maybe don't keep it in a steamy bathroom.
Probably not the best spot, no. Good airflow is important. Even using a small fan in an indoor space just to keep the air moving gently can be beneficial, especially if your home tends to be humid.
Good tip. Does this plant need a lot of feeding, or is it pretty self-sufficient once it's in the right soil mix?
Well, while fertilization requirements can vary among the thousands of Euphorbia species, Euphorbia japonica generally benefits from consistent, but light, feeding during its active growing season.
So it does appreciate some food.
It does, yes.
Yeah.
It helps support its slow but steady growth and overall vigor. It's not a heavy feeder, you don't need to blast it with fertilizer, but it appreciates a little boost when it's actually growing.
Okay, how and when?
For application, you could mix a good quality granular, slow-release fertilizer designed specifically for succulents and cacti into the soil when you initially plant it or when you repot it. That provides a baseline.
A base layer of food.
Exactly. Then during its active growing season again, spring to autumn, when it's actively putting out leaves and growing.
Right.
A diluted liquid fertilizer can be beneficial. Use a balanced succulent fertilizer, something like a 5-10-10 or 10-10-10 NPK ratio, and dilute it to half strength, or even quarter strength from what the bottle recommends.
Dilute it well.
Very important. And you'd give that typically once every 1 to 2 weeks, maybe even just once a month, depending on how it's growing. The key is weak and relatively frequent, rather than strong and infrequent.
Okay. Gentle feeding during the growing season. What about winter?
Absolutely no fertilizer during its winter dormancy, or during periods of extreme heat stress, for that matter.
Why not?
Because the plant simply can't use the nutrients effectively when it's dormant or stressed. Fertilizing then can lead to nutrient excess, which can actually burn the roots or cause harmful salt accumulation in the soil. It becomes toxic rather than helpful.
Okay. Feed when growing, stop when dormant. Simple enough.
Exactly. This consistent recommendation reflects a deep understanding of the plant's metabolic cycle. Feed it when it's hungry and active, let it rest when it's resting.
Now, if we fall in love with our little pineapple plant, which seems likely, and we want more, maybe to share with friends or just for our own growing collection, can we propagate them? And if so, what's the most successful method? Is it easy?
Yes, good news on that front. Euphorbia japonica can be successfully propagated, and the most reliable and straightforward method is by taking stem cuttings.
Stem cuttings, okay.
This is generally the most practical and recommended approach for this particular hybrid, given its branching habit.
How do you do it? Is there a trick?
There are a few crucial steps. The detailed procedure is quite important to follow for success, especially because of that latex.
Ah, yes, the toxic sap.
Exactly. First, you need to take tip cuttings. Aim for pieces that are at least 7.5 centimeters or about 3 inches long. Use a sharp, clean knife or disinfected scissors to make a clean cut and prevent spreading any disease.
Sharp and clean. Got it.
Immediately after taking the cutting, you'll see that milky sap start to ooze out. You need to thoroughly wash that sap away from the cut end. You could dip it in water or run it under a tap briefly.
Wash the sap off. Why?
Because if you let the sap dry on the cut surface, it can actually form a seal that hinders root formation. Washing it off keeps the surface clear for roots to emerge.
Okay, wash it off. Then what? Straight into soil?
No, absolutely not. This is probably the most important step. You must allow the cut end to dry and form a callus.
A callus. Like a scab.
Exactly like a plant scab. This callusing process, where the cut surface dries and forms a protective layer, needs time. It should take at least overnight, and ideally for several days, maybe even up to a week, for thicker stems, before you even think about planting it.
Let it dry for days, really?
Really, this crucial step is what prevents fungal infections and rot once the cutting is placed in the moist soil. Planting a fresh, uncalloused cutting, especially a succulent one, is usually a recipe for disaster.
Okay, callus is key. Patience required.
Patience is definitely required. Once the cutting is properly calloused, the end looks dry and sealed, then you can prepare a pot. A small one, like a 4-inch pot, is fine. Fill it with that well-draining medium we talked about, like a seed-starting mix or cactus soil. Water the soil lightly so it's uniformly moist, but not soggy.
Moist, not wet.
Right. For increased success and maybe faster rooting, you can dip the calloused cut end into a rooting hormone powder.
Does that help?
It can definitely speed things up and increase the success rate, but it's not strictly required. Euphorbias often root reasonably well without it, but it doesn't hurt.
Okay, optional but helpful.
Then, you just insert the callus cutting into the prepared soil, maybe about 0.8 centimeters or 1/3 of an inch deep. Just enough so it stands up.
Okay, and then wait.
And then wait. While the roots develop, which can take several days or even weeks, you need to keep the potting medium lightly moist. But again, be super careful not to overwater. The cutting has no roots yet to absorb much water, so it's still very susceptible to rot.
Tricky watering again.
Always tricky with these guys. You'll know the roots have successfully developed when you feel resistance if you gently tug on the stem.
Ah, the tug test.
The gentle tug test. If it feels anchored, it means roots have formed, and the cutting is ready for a slightly larger container, or perhaps a suitable garden bed if you're lucky enough to live somewhere it can grow outside.
Great. So cuttings work, but need care, especially with callusing and watering.
Precisely. While other common euphorbia propagation methods might include division of clumps or sometimes seeds, stem cuttings are generally the most practical and recommended method for Euphorbia japonica because of its specific growth habit.
Good to know. And for general upkeep, once it's established and growing, is it a high-maintenance plant that needs a lot of fuss, or is it pretty chill once you get the basics right?
Generally, once established and you've got the watering and light figured out, Euphorbia japonica is considered pretty low maintenance. It doesn't demand constant attention, which is definitely part of its appeal for busy growers.
That's good to hear. Does it need much pruning?
Pruning is usually minimal. It primarily focuses on just removing any dead or withered parts, dried leaves, dead branches, just to maintain the plant's aesthetics and overall health. Keep it tidy.
Makes sense.
Pruning can also be done strategically, maybe once in a while if a plant gets a bit overgrown or leggy. You can carefully trim back branches to manage its size, or to encourage a bushier, more compact form. Specifically, removing any spent flowers, those little cyathea after they fade, and maybe cutting back any old woody stems right from the base, can encourage vigorous new growth from the plant's crown, from that caudex area. It can help refresh its appearance and keep it looking dense and healthy.
Okay, so mostly just tidying up. Any other long-term considerations?
Well, it's worth noting that very old plants, after many years, may sometimes naturally show declining vigor. They might become less robust and more prone to dying off.
Like anything, they get old.
Exactly. So if you have a particularly cherished ancient specimen that starts looking sad, you might consider renewing your stock by taking some cuttings before it completely declines, just to ensure you always have a vibrant specimen going. Plan ahead.
Proactive propagation. Good idea. What about pests and diseases? You mentioned fungal issues from overwatering. Are there any major insect threats we need to watch out for, or is it fairly robust against bugs? And what happens if you get it wrong with the care?
Euphorbia species, in general, actually exhibit pretty high resistance to most common pests and diseases. That toxic latex we keep mentioning.
Yeah.
And in some species, their spines act as pretty effective natural deterrents to many common insects. Bugs tend to leave them alone more than other plants.
Bonus.
It is a nice bonus.
Mm-hmm.
However, for Euphorbia japonica, the most significant issues, as we've sort of hinted at repeatedly, are almost exclusively linked to excessive moisture.
Back to water again.
Always back to water with this one. Root rot is by far the most common and unfortunately often fatal problem. It's directly caused by overwatering or using poorly draining soil.
How do you know if you have root rot?
You might notice the plant's stem turning soft and mushy right at the soil line. The base just feels squishy. Or its leaves might start yellowing and dropping rapidly even if you think you haven't watered much recently. Those are classic signs.
Mushy base and yellowing leaves. Okay. Can you fix it?
Once root rot has progressed to a significant stage where a lot of the roots in the base are affected, unfortunately, fungicides are typically ineffective in reversing the damage. The tissue is already dead and decaying. Prevention is really the only cure.
So once it starts, it's usually game over.
Often, yes. Unless you catch it incredibly early and can cut away all the affected parts and reroot the healthy top, which is difficult.
Yikes. Okay, what else besides rot?
Fungal diseases like powdery mildew or rust can also occur. Powdery mildew looks like white powdery spots on the leaves or stems. Rust might appear as small, rusty orange lesions. These are particularly likely in humid environments, or if the plant is watered from above, allowing moisture to sit on the foliage and in those dense clusters.
So avoid humidity and overhead watering.
Yes, and while relatively rare, mealybugs can occasionally decide they like euphorbia. They look like tiny white cottony masses, often hiding in the crevices between branches or near the base.
Little white fluff balls.
Exactly. If you discover them, it's best to act quickly. You can physically remove them using a cotton swab dipped in rubbing alcohol. The alcohol dissolves their waxy coating. Or you can treat the plant promptly with an appropriate insecticidal soap or horticultural oil, making sure to get it into all the nooks and crannies.
Okay, mealybugs are treatable.
They are, if you catch them early. But honestly, the best and most effective defense against all these problems, rot, fungus, even pests to some extent, is proactive, good care.
Getting the basics right.
Exactly. Ensuring excellent soil drainage, practicing careful and appropriate watering techniques based on the plant's seasonal needs and the soil dryness, and providing good air circulation around the plant, especially if you're in a humid area.
Right.
Using a moisture meter, like we mentioned, can be a genuinely helpful tool in determining precise watering frequency and preventing that dreaded fatal overwatering. It takes some of the guesswork out. Remember, for Euphorbia japonica, a dry plant is very often a happy plant.
Okay, this is a really critical section because while Euphorbia japonica is beautiful and charming and relatively low maintenance once established, it also comes with a very significant warning label. We've mentioned the latex several times, but let's talk specifically about its toxicity and why handling it requires careful attention. This is super important.
It absolutely is. And this raises the crucial question: what exactly are the risks involved when dealing with this plant? Because they are real. Every single part of Euphorbia japonica, we're talking leaves, stems, the main trunk or body, even the roots, secretes that milky white sap, the latex, whenever it's damaged or cut.
Any kind of wound.
Any kind of wound. And this latex is highly toxic. It presents considerable health risks that you absolutely need to be aware of before you even bring one home.
Okay, let's get specific. What can it do?
Let's detail the potential adverse effects to really underscore the danger. First, skin contact. Direct skin contact with the latex can cause severe skin irritation.
Like a rash.
Often worse than a typical rash. It can lead to painful blistering, significant redness, and swelling. This is especially true if it comes into contact with open wounds, cuts, scratches, or particularly sensitive skin areas. Some people are more sensitive than others, but it can affect anyone.
Okay, so definitely keep it off your skin. What about eyes?
Eye contact is exceptionally dangerous. This is probably the biggest immediate risk.
Really?
Yes. If the latex gets into your eyes, it can immediately cause intense stinging pain, severe irritation, redness, watering, and it has the potential to lead to temporary or even permanent blindness if it's not flushed out immediately and thoroughly, and if medical attention isn't sought promptly.
Permanent blindness. Wow. Okay, that's serious.
It is extremely serious. Even just inhaling the vapors released from the latex, particularly if you're working with a plant in an enclosed, unventilated space.
Like pruning it indoors.
Exactly.
Oh.
That can cause stinging and irritation to the eyes and the nasal mucous membranes just from the fumes.
Nasty stuff.
Yeah.
And ingestion. What if a pet or kid chewed on it?
Ingestion of any part of the plant or its latex is toxic and must be strictly avoided. While the sources we looked at don't detail the specific effects for Euphorbia japonica ingestion, latex from other closely related Euphorbia species has been reported to cause a range of symptoms.
Such as?
It can range from an immediate burning sensation in the mouth and throat to severe gastrointestinal distress, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, abdominal pain. In more serious cases of significant ingestion, it can lead to more severe internal poisoning, affecting organs, and in extreme cases, particularly with certain Euphorbia species, fatalities have been reported. This is absolutely not a plant to be taken lightly or left, where curious pets or children might access it.
Okay, message received. Skin irritation, severe eye damage risk, toxic if inhaled or ingested. Extreme caution is necessary. So what are the essential safety measures we need to take every single time we interact with this plant? What's the protocol?
The protocol is clear and non-negotiable, really. When handling Euphorbia japonica for any task, whether it's pruning, repotting, taking those cuttings we talked about, or any other work that might involve damaging the plant and releasing sap, you should always wear appropriate personal protective equipment, or PPE.
Like what specifically?
This means sturdy, impervious gloves. Not cloth gloves the sap can soak through, but rubber, nitrile, or good gardening gloves that provide a barrier. You need long sleeves to cover your arms, and crucially, eye protection. Safety glasses or goggles are highly recommended.
Gloves, long sleeves, eye protection, always.
Always. No exceptions if you're cutting or breaking it. Also, perform any tasks that involve cutting or damaging the plant in a well-ventilated area. Outdoors is best, or near an open window with good airflow to minimize the inhalation of those potentially irritating latex vapors.
Good point. What about placement in the home?
It is absolutely vital, perhaps beyond all else, to keep the plant well out of reach of pets, cats, dogs, etc., and small children. They might not understand the danger and could easily chew on it or get the sap on themselves, potentially suffering serious harm. High shelf, locked room, whatever it takes.
Keep it away from curious mouths and hands. Makes sense. What if accidents happen? What's the first aid?
Good question. If accidental skin contact occurs, despite precautions, immediately wash the affected area thoroughly with soap and plenty of running water. Rinse for several minutes to ensure all the sap is gone.
Soap and lots of water for skin. What about eyes?
If latex gets into the eyes, this is an emergency situation. You need to flush the affected eye or eyes immediately with large amounts of clean, lukewarm water for at least 15 to 20 minutes. Hold the eyelids open while flushing to ensure water reaches all surfaces, and then seek immediate medical attention from a doctor or go straight to an emergency room.
Don't wait with eye contact.
Do not wait. Don't rub the eye. Just flush continuously and get medical help immediately. Prompt action can make a huge difference in preventing serious long-term damage. So the golden rule for handling Euphorbia japonica is crystal clear. Always assume the milky sap is a potent irritant and potentially dangerous, and protect yourself accordingly. Treat it with respect.
Respect the sap. Got it. Now, I have heard, maybe anecdotally, that sometimes plants in the broader Euphorbia family are used medicinally, in folk remedies or maybe even in modern research. Is that true at all for Euphorbia japonica? Is there possibly a healing side to this plant despite its obvious toxicity?
That's a really important distinction to make, and we need to be very, very clear here.
Okay.
While it is true that some specific other Euphorbia species, different plants within the same large family, have historically been utilized in traditional or folk medicine systems around the world for various ailments. Things like certain fungal infections, maybe malaria treatment in some cultures, or even investigated in some studies for potential effects against tumors.
So some euphorbias do have medicinal uses.
Some specific ones do, yes. And phytochemical analyses of those specific species have indeed shown them to possess potentially beneficial bioactive properties, things like high bacterial, antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, or even some anti-cancer effects in lab studies. However, this is the crucial part. It is absolutely imperative to clarify that these uses are strictly confined to particular species within the incredibly diverse Euphorbia genus.
Not all euphorbias.
Definitely not all euphorbias. The research material provided for this deep dive and general knowledge about Euphorbia japonica does not mention this specific hybrid itself having any such medicinal uses. Its latex remains highly toxic and should be considered dangerous.
So no using japonica for anything medicinal?
Absolutely not. This distinction is essential to prevent the dangerous misuse of information. Hearing Euphorbia can be medicinal, and applying it to this plant could have serious consequences. We must strongly emphasize the inherent toxicity of Euphorbia japonica and the absolute necessity of avoiding its latex, while accurately contextualizing that the mentioned uses, like medicinal applications, pertain specifically to other distinct species within the broader Euphorbia genus. These other species often have different chemical compositions and are typically used in very specific, controlled, traditional contexts, often involving detoxification processes we don't fully understand.
Right, so bottom line for Euphorbia japonica.
Yeah.
Look, don't touch without protection, and definitely don't ingest or try to use it as medicine. Its beauty is purely ornamental.
Precisely. Handle with care and admire from a safe distance.
So we know Euphorbia japonica is special. It's this unique hybrid that we've really gotten to know over the last little while here. But it's part of this huge, incredibly diverse Euphorbia family, the spurge family, with over 2,000 species. Are there other notable members that people might come across, maybe in nurseries or other collections, that share some kind of family resemblance or characteristics, or maybe just showcase the sheer variety of this amazing genus?
Indeed. And actually, even Euphorbia japonica itself, being such a popular hybrid in horticulture, has well-known and appreciated varieties within its own hybrid lineage.
Oh, like cultivars of the hybrid.
Exactly. For example, one often mentioned is Gabisan, which is spelled Gabisan, and sometimes written with Japanese characters Asinya. This is a highly valued variety of Euphorbia japonica, specifically recognized and sought after for its particularly distinct, densely packed, very symmetrical, pineapple-like appearance that collectors really adore. It's often even more compact and neat-looking than the standard form.
Okay, so there's variety even within the hybrid. Cool.
Yes. And of course, understanding its parent species, as we've discussed, offers crucial insight into Euphorbia japonica's genetic makeup and the specific characteristics it inherited.
Right, the parents tell the story.
Exactly. As we discussed, Euphorbia Susanna is one of its dwarf succulent parents, originating from South Africa. This species contributes significantly to Euphorbia japonica's compact, almost spherical form and its overall succulent nature.
The short, fat one.
Kind of, yes. The other parent, Euphorbia Bupleurifolia, also from South Africa, is known for its own distinctive appearance. It's often a bit taller, maybe with more pronounced caudex and larger leaves, and it contributes to the hybrid's unique morphological traits, particularly maybe aspects of its stem structure, the way the leaves form that tuft at the top. Euphorbia japonica is really a beautiful blend of these two distinct South African species.
A true mashup.
A true mashup. But beyond these direct ancestors, the Euphorbia genus is, as we've highlighted, incredibly vast. It encompasses just an enormous number of species and other hybrids with wildly diverse forms. And many of these are exceptionally popular in cultivation among plant enthusiasts and collectors worldwide. While these are distinct plants from Euphorbia japonica itself, they all share those defining characteristics of the genus, the milky sap,
Right, latex.
and that unique cyathium flower structure.
Can you give us just a few more examples just to really show how varied and fascinating this family is beyond our specific plant? It really sounds like there's a whole world to explore just within Euphorbia.
Oh, absolutely. It's a lifetime of collecting for some people. For instance, you might encounter species like Euphorbia dicaria. It's a native of Madagascar, known for its really attractive sort of wavy textured leaves and a woody caudex base. It's often sought after for succulent bonsai.
Ooh, succulent bonsai, interesting.
Yeah. Then there's the very popular Euphorbia obesa. You see this one quite a bit. It's often charmingly called the baseball plant.
Baseball plant.
Yes, because its body is this distinctive spherical ribbed stem that genuinely resembles a stitched baseball. It's a huge collector's favorite for its unique symmetry and shape.
I think I've seen that one. Very cool.
It is cool. And its various hybrids, like Euphorbia obesa exclubosa, often combine features of two different globular species, creating even more interesting forms.
Okay, what else?
Other notable species include Euphorbia valida, which is another intriguing spherical succulent, but this one often has a more quirky patterned surface as it ages. And Euphorbia stellata, which sometimes goes by the common name Hiryu. This one is recognized for its fascinating, intricate, almost star-shaped root system that growers often lift up and display as a feature above the soil line.
Showing off the roots, that's different.
Yeah, it's quite a statement. You also have Euphorbia melliformis, another beautiful spherical succulent, often with very distinct vertical ribbing, resembling a small melon. Hence the name melliformis, melon-shaped.
Makes sense. Any non-spherical ones that are popular?
Definitely. For those looking for something truly unique in form, there's Euphorbia anoplea. It's sometimes known as the Tanzania zipper plant.
The zipper plant.
Yes, because it has these distinct, sharply ribbed, usually leafless stems that grow in kind of zigzag patterns, and they genuinely resemble a zipper running up the stem. Very architectural looking.
Wow.
And then a whole other category are the various Euphorbia francoisii hybrids. These are particularly cherished, not so much for their stem shape, but for their beautiful and incredibly diverse leaves. They come in just a kaleidoscope of colors and patterns.
Make fancy leaves.
Really fancy leaves. Examples you might see include cultivars like brown sugar with dark, rich brown and red tones, chocolate waffle, which is really textured, almost quilted foliage, green chutney with vibrant greens and patterns, and pink illusion, which displays stunning pink, cream, and green variegation. Each of these francoisii hybrids, while part of the same Euphorbia family, offers a completely different aesthetic, focusing on leaf beauty rather than stem structure. It just shows the incredible range that this one plant family can encompass.
That's amazing. From baseballs to zippers to fancy leaves, all in one family.
Exactly. So by listing these various related species and hybrids, we can effectively illustrate the immense morphological and horticultural diversity within the Euphorbia genus. It really helps you understand that while Euphorbia japonica, our focus today, is unique in its specific hybrid form and its own particular charm.
Right.
It's just one captivating example within a much larger botanically fascinating family. It provides broader context, hopefully encouraging further exploration of the genus if you're interested, while at the same time reinforcing the unique aspects and the specific identity of Euphorbia japonica itself. #tag out Jerez.
So what does this all mean for you, our listener? Whether you're a seasoned succulent collector or maybe just starting out and intrigued by this little pineapple plant. Our deep dive into Euphorbia japonica reveals it as, well, a truly charming and distinctive dwarf succulent. It's highly prized for that compact, pineapple-like growth habit and those unique tufted leaves. And its fascinating origin as a hybrid of two South African species, that's the key takeaway about its identity, is precisely what shapes its particular succulent traits and its very specific, sometimes surprising, care requirements. This deep dive, I hope, shows it's not just about growing a plant, it's about understanding how something like a misleading name can literally impact your plant's health if you follow it blindly.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Knowing its true heritage really unlocks its full potential.
Yeah.
And while it's generally considered pretty low maintenance once you get it established,
Right.
its inherent deep susceptibility to root rot from overwatering means meticulous attention to superior drainage in the pot, in the soil. And a precise, responsive watering regimen is absolutely paramount. You have to watch that water, especially during its critical winter dormancy period.
Don't water in winter, pretty much.
Or water, very, very carefully. Its need for bright, indirect light and that strict protection from cold temperatures also define its optimal growing environment, all of which makes pot culture, growing it in a container, the most suitable and recommended approach in most climates around the world.
Good summary. And the final warning.
And remember, always remember, that milky latex it secretes demands careful handling due to its toxicity. Always wear those gloves and eye protection when you're cutting or repotting.
Right. Respect the sap.
Respect the sap. But despite this crucial caution, Euphorbia japonica remains a highly appealing and incredibly rewarding ornamental plant for succulent enthusiasts and collectors alike. Its unique aesthetic charm and its manageable size really make it a valuable and distinctive addition to indoor collections or maybe specialized rank gardens in very mild climates, provided its specific needs are understood and, most importantly, consistently met.
Well said.
This whole deep dive, I think, highlights that even plants with seemingly simple or even misleading names can offer just a wealth of discovery and lead to a much deeper understanding, not just of the plant, but of botany and horticulture in general.
Definitely.
And maybe it raises an important question for you, our listener, to ponder.
Yeah.
Beyond just the practicalities of care, the watering, the light, what does learning about a plant's true origins, its real lineage, its family secrets, what does that change about how you perceive it and how you see its place in your home or garden? Does knowing it's a South African hybrid, not Japanese, deepen your connection somehow, or maybe alter your approach to identifying and researching other plants you encounter?
That's a great question to leave people with. Does the backstory change the relationship? Think about that question. And thanks so much for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of Euphorbia japonica.
Always a pleasure.
We'll be back with another stack of sources and more fascinating insights very soon. Until then, keep digging for knowledge.